All right. Awesome. So let's just get started here. All right, guys, welcome tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight at C4 After Hours, our After Hours series where the experts come to drill down and get into details of their expertise and their offerings. 2021 is upon us. This has been a crazy year to say the least, but from adversity comes opportunity. So we're going to be doing these series, and we're going to be doing it through December and on into the new year, as long as people are there to step up and, have things that they want to help with uplifting, rebuilding, and improving ourselves as human beings. So building ourselves and our mindset, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what's stopping us from being our best self. Let's build ourselves in our health and share ways to be in control of our well-being and not just survive, but thrive. Let's build our finances and set ourselves up to have safety nets and tools to leverage and take money burdens off the table and share ways to build, save, and increase our portfolios. Let's build our businesses with help from our brand advisors, our designers, our business and marketing consultants. Let's build our homes where we're spending so much more time in with experts in home maintenance and good space. And last but never least, let's build our relationships with our partners, our children, our family, our friends, and our colleagues. And it's been a super hard year, but we have to find ways to stay connected and be better together. So you guys, we've been doing these series. Last month we had Corliss Wood of Clutter Corrections came to show us how to kind of make our home a more comfortable place. And earlier we had a panel of these super duper experts, Brian Lobig, Megan Coburn, Ann Brennan, and Sage Harper, in the space of Google My Business. And last week we had Marcia McCrae showing you how to drop that anchor and build your brand. You can see all these on our YouTube channel, which is C4 Explosive Networking. So please like and subscribe to that. And today we continue with more fabulousness with the amazing Nicoletta Pichardo. So I'm going to really let Nicoletta say a couple of things about her. I know her as the coaches of coaches, and certainly someone that anyone, not just other coaches, but people who need her coaching, can just really grow from. I have benefited and learned from her as a friend, as a coach, as a mentor. And I really just can't say enough about her spirit and how she wants to just show people how to be better, get better, and do better. So she's going to drive down the how-tos of an effective presentation, which is the message of your brand and the driver of your success, and a key to be understood and noticed. So, Nicoletta, I am going to turn it over to you, and hopefully, do you have, let me just make you the host. How's that?
All right, that'll be for the breakout rooms. And as we get started, I want to ask you, how long does it take to make a first impression? Just blurt it out. We're not that big of a group. How many seconds?
1 second.
Oh, that's fast. 1, 3, 1. Man, you're good. Very, very close.
5.5 seconds.
5.5, George. You're very, very close. Any other guesses?
2.
2. Or you're even faster. The actual study says we take about 7 seconds. 7 seconds. George, you win. That's how long it takes to make a first impression. Wow. And that is true in the digital space as well as in person. And we forget that sometimes. We're all spending so much time networking, giving presentations, sharing what we do in the digital space, that we forget to tap into those precious 7 seconds in the beginning of a conversation. And today we're going to change that, because you're going to walk away with some new tools. Now, as I'm sharing all this with you, I just want to see by raise of hands here, who is a public speaker in that space? Who's a public speaker? So 3 hands maybe. So for the thing is this, if you have conversations with anybody other than yourself, you're a public speaker. This is going to apply to you, whether you're having a pitch that you're giving somewhere, or you're having just a one-on-one after a networking event like we always have on every other Tuesday. This information applies if you're speaking to people. Today, we're going to dive in and really power up your toolbox. There are a couple of outcomes you're going to have after our conversation today, and that is we're going to take another look at the 5 reframes, because there are 5 ways, whether you are just starting your presentations or you've been giving presentations, we're going to look at 5 reframes that are going to help you to take your speech from speech, presentation, elevator pitch, from wherever you currently are and just take it to that next level. I like to say to go from powerless to powerful, and wherever you are in that spectrum, it'll give it that extra, that extra little bit of clarity. And the other thing is, this is not a presentation. This is interactive. Tonight's going to be different than most nights because, we've all been to those presentations where like, oh, this is good. This is, let me write that down real quick. And then what happens the minute you get off the call? You're like, oh, the dog, the wine, the dinner, and you completely forget about it. And if we do things the way we've always done things, we get the same kind of results. So we want to change this around. And I want to know from you, who is here and really wants to get something out of this? Like really want to walk away having learned something that sticks. Just shout it out if that's you. Yes. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So we're going to do things a little bit differently, because that's when you do things differently, you're going to have a different outcome. So just a little bit about me. Most of the people I know, not everybody. My name is Nicoletta Pichardo. The name of my company is Navigo Coaching. And of course, Natasha has done such a wonderful, wonderful introduction. Thank you for that. My background is in counseling. Actually, when I grew up, my kids wanted me to be, or my mom wanted me to be a doctor. That was really her idea of success. To be successful in life, you have to be a doctor. So I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but moved to the United States. And by the time I was at university, or at least at that point in the university, I was in Texas. And I wanted to make my mom happy. And I thought, well, I guess being a doctor is okay. So I went to, switched my major to pre-med, went to an internship at a hospital. Now, all the pre-med students, I noticed they were jumping to the programs like, where the newborns were, the surgery, all the high action items. And what they offered me was cardiology. And since I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to be a doctor anyway, I was pretty okay being in the cardiology department. Not a lot of action there, as you can imagine. And for me, it was just the perfect place, because as much as I was there to be a medical student, what really stood out for me were the people there. And what really stood out for me about the people is that people were experiencing their sometimes very, very desperate situations very differently. Some patients, it was just clear that, they had very little time left, maybe no family, but their spirits were high. They were hopeful even. And then there were some people, you would see visitors coming by, you would see, there was life there, and yet they were completely, lethargic, as though the life was ending. And that really intrigued me, because I thought, there are 2 different patients here. Why is the response to what is happening so different? And I immediately changed, because I knew that was the part that really interested me the most, was the psychology, what drives us as human beings. And I got my bachelor's in psychology, my master's in counseling, and really enjoyed understanding what makes us do the things that we do. Now, it was about 2009 that I was in one of those crossroads myself. I was, happily married, or so everybody thought. I had a successful husband, 2 kids that were going to private school. We had the house with the white picket fence. And yet for myself, I was in such a darkness, and I couldn't figure out why. I mean, everybody was telling me you should be so happy, and isn't it great that your husband and your kids and da 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 da. But I knew I was having a hard time getting out of bed in the mornings. And I thought, I know that this isn't right. And thanks to my previous studies, I knew that this was depression. And I also knew that one powerful way to get yourself out of depression is through physical exercise. So I started going to the gym, which was really hard. I mean, sometimes I sat in that car for like 10 minutes, just trying to get the strength to open that car door. But eventually started gaining some momentum and realized that what was causing my void and that darkness within me is that I was making everybody happy, doing all the things that I thought I should and needed and ought to be doing, but really wasn't on my own path, on my own journey. And that's when I stepped into coaching, discovered that we are who we are from our past, but coaching is that powerful way to step forward into the future. And that's what I'm excited to help my clients with. Meanwhile, I've helped thousands and thousands of hours with my clients who are individuals, teams, groups, create that shift and discover more of what they want so that they can have more what they really want in life and to get a little bit more of that alignment, a lot of more of that alignment. And that's really what I'm passionate about doing. And our conversation today is going to tap into that because you'll see that you're probably not even giving yourself credit for the amazing speaker that you already are. Let's start looking at the necessary reframes. And by the way, if you look into the chat, we're going to be doing some exercises together. And we are going to have a outline ready at the end of this presentation so that you have a presentation ready. And you can follow along if you go into the chat. There's a PDF you can download. You don't have to fill it out on the PDF, but this is going to be your working paper. So you can fill that out later. You can have it on a piece of paper, but this is going to be your kind of your workbook for our session today. So let's look at the 5 reframes. The reframe number 1 is starting your presentation. And my question to you is, when does a presentation start? When does a presentation start? What's your guess? Who wants to take a guess at this?
As soon as you are visible and with other people.
As soon as you're visible, okay. Any other guesses?
Or as you're thinking about it.
Let's see that you guys are, there we go. As you're thinking about it, okay. What other guesses are there?
As soon as you say the first word of your presentation.
As soon as we say the first word.
As soon as you walk in front of people, as soon as you're in front on stage, you know, as soon as you're making some kind of physical contact, they see you, your body language, your everything, how you show up.
Got it, got it. So I'm hearing a lot of, you know, when the camera starts, when people see you, when you start the meeting. I'm here to tell you that your presentation starts twice. The presentation starts the moment you say yes to the engagement. The moment you say, okay, I'll do it, your presentation starts. And why is this important? Because the energy you bring into writing your presentation has a lot to do with the way it's going to be perceived by your audience. So a client that worked with me, she was really wanting to write a motivational presentation. Like this was her drive. And every time she started writing, she'd be like, okay, all right, presentation. All right. Actually, I need to pick up the kids. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. All right. Would come back and go, well, I don't know the structure. I'm not sure of the structure. I'm not, well, what should I phrase it like this? Avoidance. Who's been in that space of having avoidance when you're doing a presentation? Yes. And what ended up happening, she was just dragging her heels. And it was when she gave the presentation the first time, it was anything but, you know, inspiring. It was, you know, it was something that she'd memorized. It was something you couldn't feel the energy. Every time you work on a presentation, you need to bring the right energy. And the second time you start the presentation is 10 minutes, at the very latest, 10 minutes before you go on presenting or before you even go out on stage, a minimum of 10 minutes. Why is this so important? Because the energy that you tap into is the energy that you're going to give out. And it takes about 10 minutes to get yourself in a good energy place. Now, it is Thursday evening, and I am not immune to the fact that Christmas is coming up, holidays, Hanukkah, New Year's. It's the end of the year where we don't know, should we be planning for the new year or should we be finishing strong? And sometimes the energy is a little bit out. But I want to show you how quickly you can shift. So I asked you if you wanted to get a lot out of this presentation. This is going to be something maybe a little bit new for you. I'm going to ask you just...
I'm
Yes?
sorry to interrupt, sweetie. I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, but I think because I don't have co-host, I can't let anybody in.
Oh,
So, and I don't want you to have to interrupt anymore because I'm trying to let Karen in.
You got her?
I apologize for interrupting. Okay, she's saying she's in. Okay.
So she's in an advantage. She's probably already, it looks like she's maybe standing. So this is what we're going to do together. I'm going to count to 3. On 3, we're just going to stand up. That's all we're going to do. Just stand up. And it doesn't matter if you're wearing pajama pants, we're okay. This is after hours or you have got your drink next, not a problem. But just see what it feels like to stand up. I'm going to count to 3. 1, and there's Natasha. She's already go. All right. So 1, 2, 3, just stand up. And what does it feel like when you're standing? Feel a little bit more energized? So let's try this again because I don't see smiles. I see some people are still sitting. They're like, really? So let's try this again. Everybody sit down. I'm going to try this one more time. One more time. I'm going to count to 2. And I just want you to stand up with some energy. 1, 2, and stand up. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, really, where is your energy right now? Like out the roof, or like, yeah, okay, I could be more energized. 5, yeah, thank you for that honesty. Like, okay, so let's try this one more time. We can't bring energy into presentation into our clients' lives if we don't feel it. So let's try this one more time. I want you to imagine, I'm going to count to 3, and there's going to be a knock at somebody's door. One person's going to get a $1 million check, but it's the person who answers the door the fastest. Let's see how fast you could do it. 1, 2, 3. Stand up. Okay. What are you noticing?
Energy.
Energy. And I see
yes.
some smile. Now,
Yes.
did I say sit back down? We're not done standing yet. One of the things that people tell me is that when they do a presentation, they hold back because, well, they feel a little bit like they're not confident enough. I'm going to show you a little secret to confidence. I want you to just take your arms out like this. Just open it up. Now, and you'll see Antoinette here. She's the master at teaching us how to use the space. So some of this I've learned from her to gently, and don't yank your shoulders back, but just gently open up and feel the space that's there. Just feel it. Now, think of a moment in your life when you were on fire. I mean, like unstoppable. And if you want, you can put your arms down a little below. But what's a moment in your life you were on fire? Like it didn't matter what was going to happen. You were gonna go. And you don't have to share it, but just think about it for a moment. Can you think of a moment where you were unstoppable, where you felt ultimately confident? Does everybody have a moment like that? So here's what we're going to do. Gently open up. Take a deep breath in. And if you want, you can feel free to close your eyes for just a moment and allow yourself to go to that moment. Like not in your mind, but if you were really, really there, how would you be breathing when you're ultimately confident? How are you standing? What are you seeing about yourself? What are you thinking when you are in that place of confidence? Maybe your head's just a little higher and your smile is just a little bit bigger. And just feel confident. Now, what does that feel like?
Amazing.
Who else noticed something about just tapping into that for just a moment?
It's natural power.
Natural power. I like that.
I like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Say again.
Not pretending, but
Yeah.
we are.
Absolutely. And that's, just standing there. So the next time, and feel free to sit back down. So the next time you are invited to give a presentation, remember that you can tap into this, because by the way, how long did it take you to feel confident just now?
Not very long.
Not very long. And you've got this resource in you all the time. You can tap into this confidence anytime you need it. Confidence is not this elusive thing. It's something that you can tap into. And the next time you have to give a presentation, just allow yourself to open up a little bit bigger and just tap into that memory. And that's how you start writing your presentations, your one-on-ones. Imagine if everybody did that before they got on a call. What kind of energy would you have? Like out the roof. And that is the key to understanding the first reframe. A speech or presentation or one-on-one does not start when the camera is on. It starts 10 minutes before you get on, and it starts every time you're working on that piece, whatever that may be. Now, the second reframe we want to look at is to go from expert to guide. When we think about somebody being an expert, what does an expert do? When you think about an expert, and I'm looking at this group, and I know that we've got lots and lots of experts. We have marketing experts. We've got, money experts. We have connecting experts. But when we listen to an expert, it can easily feel like you're in a classroom somewhere. When we're listening to somebody who's an expert, they're usually talking at the audience. And you've experienced that. This is what you need to do. It's usually very prescriptive. And it's a type of, this is right, this is wrong. Sometimes it's even a little bit judgmental. And there's very low engagement. Now, when you have low engagement with the audience, for you as a business owner, what does that mean for people being interested in your services if you have low engagement?
Very little.
Very
I think
little.
an expert, I think I was actually looking for a different word when I was looking for the introduction here, because I was using expert because I think there are a lot of experts out there. But a guide is so much better, because I think of an expert kind of like a boss as opposed to a leader. And,
Yes.
the expert's like the boss and the leader's like the guide, because
Yes.
they're going to show you how instead of tell you
Yes.
what.
And the thing is, each person in here is an expert in your field. You are the expert. And when you're going out and sharing, you don't want to show up as the expert, because there's a push. And here's a little exercise for you to try out. So raise one of your hands. It doesn't matter if it's the left or the right hand. Just raise it up and just, right in front of your face. It doesn't have to be high. Just about here. And I want you to take the other hand and just press against it. What are you noticing when you're pressing? And just put your palms together. Put your palms together and just notice what you're doing when you're pressing. What are you doing when you're pressing? What are you noticing?
Feel resistance.
Somebody said something. Resistance?
Feel resistance.
You feel resistance, don't you? Anybody else notice
Tension.
anything?
Tension.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a matching of energy to me.
Yes, a matching of energy. Absolutely. When we come and show up as the expert, we're pushing. Sometimes it's all about us. I have the answers to whatever the problem is. I know. And it's like we're pushing it towards our audience. And just like with the hand, when you're pushing something, if you have kids, you know this is true. The more you push, the more they push back.
Hmm.
And when you're showing up as the expert, even though you are the expert, you're going to get pushback. And I heard this word, I think Natasha mentioned it. You want to show up as the guide. As the guide, you can be conversational. You're offering an invitation. You're offering a moment of discovery, and there's a lot more engagement. There's dialogue. You can have an engaged group even with 500 people. It's not the number of people, but it's how you're showing up. And that's really more powerful. And you've probably experienced this too, where somebody is, maybe your significant other has told you something 50 times and you're like, I don't get it, I don't see it. Then all of a sudden you have that aha moment. You're like, oh my God, we got to do this. And then, your significant other is saying, I've been telling you this the whole time. And you're like, I know, you've been telling me, but wow, what a discovery. Let's do this now. When you show up as a guide in a one-on-one or in any kind of presentation, it's an invitation for people to discover. And when somebody discovers something about themselves, that's a lot more powerful, and it has a lot more potential to stick. then how do you actually start? How do you start a presentation? In a presentation, the best way is to start with the end. Who's ever thought about thinking of the end? Like you're thinking about the presentation and you start at the end. Who does that normally? One person?
Oh, I do it.
You don't.
I'm sorry.
We always want to start with the end in mind. Now, these two things, if you're following along on the sheet here, are not things we want to share with the clients or with our audience necessarily, but we want to have that focus. So a client that worked with me, she was a consultant. She was doing a lot of speaking, and she came and she said, I'm so frustrated. I'm so done with these talks because it's not like I'm not getting the kind of results I want. It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy. I'm not doing it anymore. And so I asked her, I said, well, share a little bit about these presentations. She said, well, I want to be really good and I don't want to make any mistakes. I want to be really prepared. I want to put myself out there, all these things. And I listened to her and I said, okay, I haven't once heard you say, I want to get clients from this. I haven't once heard you say, I want to get 10 referrals or I want to have a powerful connection. I haven't heard you say that. And at that moment, and I asked her, I said, well, how come? And she said, wow. She says, every time I do this, I want to show up so professional. I've totally forgotten this is why I'm doing it. When we think about writing or presenting or going in a one-on-one, keep the end in mind. Always ask, what's the outcome? Is the outcome connection? Is it to persuade? Is it to get a new speaking engagement? What's the outcome? But that's what we want to start with and then work backwards. And then ask yourself, what's the main takeaway, both for your audience and for yourself? So for your audience, what's the main takeaway? Maybe you've told them, how is it that they can live more energized through isogenics? Maybe that's the key takeaway. But for you, the takeaway, your main takeaway is that you've gotten 5 more people to sign up for your email list. When you start with the end in mind, you can work backwards. Now, I promised you at the end of this presentation that you're going to have kind of a rough draft or a sample outline. Now, if you don't have a presentation that you're currently working on, think about what is a presentation that you'd want to do for your business, even if it's just a 5-minute. Or if you don't think that you want to include speaking, think about your elevator pitch. You can use that for the purposes of our exercise that we're about to do. Does everybody have a topic, either a presentation you're currently working on or an idea that you could be working on or your elevator pitch that you're willing to bring into this presentation? Does everybody have something? Okay, so if you look at the sheet, it has on page 2, it's going to ask you to think about, oops, let me get this in order. It's going to ask you, what is the purpose of your speech? And just think about if this is even if you're using this for your one-on-ones, and this is, I'm just looking at the sheets here on page 2 is where we're starting. If you're using this for your one-on-ones, ask yourself, do I know for sure what I really want from these one-on-ones? What's the purpose of doing them? And connection is great, but connection isn't enough to take your business forward. So what is it that you'd want to get? And I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about what is the purpose of your presentation speech or 90-second elevator pitch, and what's the main thing that you want to get out of it. Maybe you want to add some things. So I'll give you just a few seconds and I'll play some music. After the music goes off, you have a couple more seconds and then we'll take it from there. Does anyone have any questions before I send you to do some writing? All right, then start writing. A couple more seconds there. Oops. Looks like we lost Natasha. There you are.
What?
And is everybody, okay, good. Everybody in a good space for us to move forward? Thumbs up. All right. Now, again, these are not things that you necessarily need to share with your audience, but it's really getting clear for you. This is going to guide how you're having these conversations with people. So now you know the purpose, and maybe you've added some new outcomes. Then the question is, how do you start a speech? Now, this is where we tap back into the 7 seconds. We talked about a speech. Oops. So we talked about a speech actually starting the moment you start. Then what do you need to do to start a presentation? What is it that you need to do to start a presentation that hooks people in? In this, ladies and gentlemen, you have to have an amazing hook to get people in. It doesn't matter what your topic is. If you are speaking on life insurance, for example, a traditional way might be to say, you know, life insurance is very important to you. You want to take care of your family. You want to take care of your loved ones. How about if I said, who's encountered death recently? Do you feel how that has a different quality? We've all encountered death. You've got my attention. Or if you tell somebody a statistic, there are lots of ways that you can open up a presentation. You could give a presentation. For example, did you know, and I don't know if this is actually true, but we had an important topic on branding last week. Did you know that 50% of businesses that don't have solid branding are gone in 2 years? And I'm just making that up. Would you have a business owner's attention if you had a statistic like that? So it doesn't matter what your industry is. And if you want to throw some out, welcome. We can see if we have some ideas. We're actually going to go into a breakout room to give you a moment to flesh out some great hooks to start your presentation. There's really nothing too dry. I know in some bigger presentations, and sometimes we do this in a 4-week in 4-week sessions, you know, there is no presentation that is too dry. You just have to find the right angle. And keep in mind, you always want to know your audience. If you're talking about the same topic, but different age group, you might need a different hook. If you're talking about environmental issues to a 70-year-old, you might need a different hook than if you're talking to somebody who's 25. You have already outlined the purpose of your presentation and the outcomes. You're now going to go into breakout rooms for about 5 minutes. And let me see if I can do that for you. And we're going to go into the breakout rooms. If I can set that up. Oops. Yeah. And we'll have about 3 people. You'll have about 5 minutes. So think about what are some fantastic hooks and help each other. You know, share with what you do and see what other people are saying. These are all business owners. You will have a different perspective from somebody who's not in your industry. So think about what's that one line that you could put in, share it with the group, get some feedback on it, and help somebody else with theirs. But I'll give you about 5 minutes to find that hook. So the next time you start a presentation, you're hitting the ground running. Are there any questions before I send you out into the breakout rooms? And
Reggie's got a question.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. You might cover this later, but like, how do you feel about statistics? Like, I like to use stats, but sparingly and like with impact. So, but they can be easily overused, and too many can become like, you know, just too many numbers for people. So, do you have any words about how to selectively use statistics?
Yes. When you use numbers, that's a great way to engage people, absolutely. But make sure, and this is something I will cover later, that every decision your potential buyer is making has two components: an emotional decision, and essentially every decision every buyer makes is an emotional decision, and we rationalize with logic. So a company that's in IT security, their big drive is we want to keep people safe, but they're rationalizing with logic. So if you're using numbers, you're speaking to that part of logic. Depending on your audience, use that number, but add something emotional about it. Companies fail. And I don't know exactly if they're, think about this, use them sparingly, but add something, what the impact is. Just a number is just a number. But if you're able to give it that spin where your audience says, whoa, this could be me. This could be my business. This could be, the hospital that I'm running. This could be my organization. So you need to use that number and drive it home to them. Does that help?
I can give you an example.
Okay.
It's okay. Sorry, I don't mean to steal its show. Did you know today that over 12 million websites were affected by a virus for WordPress? Do you currently have a backup and maintenance plan with your current IT provider or digital marketing partner?
May I add something to that?
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that. I love the question, and maybe put the impact. The impact of that is what? How much money are you losing? So I'm sorry, I hope that's okay. But that was a fantastic, exactly 12 million people, and then put an impact statement, that emotional part, what that means for you as a business owner: loss of revenue, loss of credibility, and loss of your brand.
Beautiful.
Who pays attention to what Stephen just said with that? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Those were both really good points. So now I'm going to send you into the breakout rooms, and let me make sure, because it looks like these couple people. Okay. So I'm going to send you into the breakout rooms. Have fun. I'll give you about 5 minutes for it, and look forward to hearing what you came up with. Good. So now, moving along, we've had several really important reframes. We've looked at the start. We've looked at how the energy we need to bring in. We've looked at understanding a little bit more about our audience, and that we need to have a powerful hook with some great examples. Then what do we do with the rest of the presentation? Like I said, this tonight is sort of the best of a 4-week training session. So think of a speech or a presentation a little bit like a Lego set. You can add on. You always have the basic pieces, but you can always add on. And that's what you're getting tonight. It's sort of the basic frame. If you wanted to really learn about selling from the stage, or if you wanted to learn about being a motivational speaker, or wanted to learn about making social impact kind of presentations, you'd add on different pieces. But the next piece would more or less stay the same. We'd file around it a little bit, but the next piece might be a little bit different from how you're accustomed to putting your presentation together. We're going to dip into the power of threes, and maybe you've heard, oops.
I can't see your screen. Are you sharing your screen? Are you trying to share?
Looks like it didn't. Looks like it didn't actually pick it up. Let me start that. So while I'm doing that, so the power of threes. When they've looked at, and I keep looking to the side because I can't actually see you. All right, well, we'll do this the traditional way then. The power of threes is that you want to give 3 reasons for everything that you're doing. And there's just been some studies that seems to be what motivates people the most. So we want to look at the 3 areas that we're looking at are, the first part of your presentation is, what is the pain point of your clients? What is it that they're really experiencing right now? And I'll just do it good old fashioned way. What's the main?
Didn't get that.
Here we go.
My computer is overextended. The main question we want to ask ourselves is, what's the main pain experienced by our audience?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
I don't know if you heard that. And that's the question you want to ask yourself as you're starting out. That first question is, what is it that they're experiencing? Now, keep in mind that our audience, again, especially since we're all business owners here, our emotional decisions are everything we make is an emotional decision. And branding is an emotional decision. Whether I want to feel better is an emotional decision, but we use logic to justify it. So think about, what are the pain points that your clients are experiencing typically? And put in a little bit of both, because you won't know unless you're talking to CEOs, and I work with some STEM leaders. They are a little bit more inclined to logic. They will like to understand, or a little more specific. Again, this is knowing your audience, but you also want to put in some of that emotional, because they're still people. You want to have, and if you're following along, I put it again into the chat, you have this on your sheet. Think about, what is the main pain experienced by your audience? Is it, if it's social impact, again, it's, social justice. Well, what's the pain of the audience? This is an injustice for all of us, children learning racism. And put it in both languages, ideally. Put in some feeling words, and this is the impact, as Stephen had that example with the computer. Well, how do you feel as a business owner when you've just lost massive amounts of money? Not good, but that's going to touch me. And put a little bit of logic in there. So this is the body basically, and this is always going to be the structure. Anytime you give a presentation, even your elevator pitch, you can put in this format. So what's the pain experienced by the audience, or the point that you want to get across? Life insurance, who's experienced death lately? Leaving people and family unprepared, sometimes having to move out of their homes, loss, not just of the loved one, but of the life that they are accustomed to. Really flesh that out. People have to be able to connect to that part for you to be able to move forward. That's key. The second part is where you can put in your solutions, your services or products, but be careful the way you phrase it. So for example, we put in how they're going to feel first. So with branding, we're going to feel relieved because people are always going to associate that brand with you, or with insurance. Again, what a relief that you don't have to worry about that anymore. And then you'll put in, and by the way, I sell insurance. By the way, I am a network builder. You might want to put that in last. You always want to sell the solution, how they're feeling, the impact this is having. So you're doing this by being whatever, an IT brand. So for example, a client of mine, she's a real estate agent, and she was really struggling. She said, every time I go to a networking event, so many real estate agents. And I asked her, I said, well, what is it that you like about being a real estate agent? And she said, wow, it's so exciting. People buying their first home, that's really her niche. It's so exciting. They're buying their first home. Their eyes are really exciting. I said, really? I said, do you tell people that? Which is why I'm a real estate agent. So I tell people I'm a real estate agent. I'll put you in your dream home. And that's how she said it. I'm a real estate agent. I'll put you in your dream home. Who felt the love with that? Not so much. So when she changed that, she said, you know what I do? It's such a struggle. People are lost, they're confused, they're not sure who to turn to when they're first thinking about buying a home. And then they make the wrong decision that ends up costing them lots and lots of money. What I do is I help people step into their first home stress-free and find that right match so that they can really focus on finding their home and not on all the technical stuff, because I guide them through that part. And by the way, I'm a real estate agent and I'll put you in your dream home. That's a very different way of connecting with the audience than saying, I'm a real estate agent and I'll put you in your dream home. The last thing is, what are the conditions of your client like once they've worked with you? And that's so powerful. When somebody has done the 11-day cleanse with Natasha, what is life like afterwards? It's not just during the cleanse, it's afterwards. This is a lifestyle change. This isn't a yo-yo. Your life will be different afterwards because you're going to have the strategies and the know-how to keep this going. And when you've adapted this and know how to keep this going, it's going to touch your kids. It's not just about the 11 days and whatever, and I'm making all this up, but add at the end, what is life like after? And that's going to be different for everyone. But make sure that you're putting in at the end, what is life after? And again, keep it balanced, that keeping in mind, some clients are going to be drawn more towards the emotional side, and some clients are going to be more drawn to the logic side. When it comes to paying, you definitely want, especially when people are saying, well, I don't know if I have the money for this, you need to make sure it's balanced and you have a little bit of both. And especially if somebody needs to justify it to somebody, you want to put a little bit of both in there. Are there any questions to anything I've said so far, or yeah buts, or I'm curious if? Then I'm going to give you just a moment, about 30 seconds or so, just to get your mind wrapped around these threes. And by the way, if you have the one selling point, it's this one pain. My suggestion here is the power of threes, but you don't have to stick to that. If it's one thing that you do, or there's one pain, that's what you stick to. For me, when I say if I were to fill this out right now, and if I were to tell you, I would tell you that I work with people who are frustrated because they're not reaching some of their goals. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling stretched. And they have that voice of uncertainty that's telling them, I'm not sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if this is going to work. What do I provide to them? Well, I help them leverage their strengths as building blocks. I help them gain clarity and focus, and I help them increase their confidence and kick those limiting beliefs out the door. And what is life like afterward? They're living a bigger life, both in their business and their life, and they have achieved greater income, impact, and freedom. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and then I'm going to put you back into the breakout rooms so that you have a chance to practice this. And here we go with some music, I hope. All right, that was 37 seconds. Like I said, normally we do this in 4 weeks and really flesh all of these things out. So don't worry about getting it right, but you're on your way. I'm going to send you back into the breakout rooms, I hope. Let me see if I can set that up for you. And I put the worksheet back into the chat, so hopefully you'll be able to see that. And I am about to send you back into the rooms, and you'll have about 7 minutes. Well, looking at the time, about 6 minutes. So you'll have to go through this a little bit fast, but at least you will have practiced it once. Is everybody ready to be kicked over into a breakout room for the next 6 minutes? Thumbs up. All right, here you go. And Kathy, do you see that you have an invitation to go into a room? Let me see, because it looks like you should be in room number 3. People are coming back.
Yeah.
Was that enough time? Not enough time? Some people don't want to come back. They're still in their in their breakout rooms.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if Zoom makes it clear enough to you that you can leave if you'd like to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
What was that like?
it was
Who?
great. But you just get sucked out at that moment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know. But at least you now have a rough draft for whatever your next presentation is. You can, there's always a way to level it up. There's always more to it. And like I said, today I put in a 4-week training session into 60 minutes. So I know it's a lot, but now you have the framework. You can still do some filing. But in the power of community, when you're just saying it to somebody, sometimes what seems so obvious to us when you say it to somebody, they're like, yeah, no, that doesn't, what does that mean even? So even having that, having said it out loud once or twice, you can play around with it and ask yourself, how does it feel to me? How does it sound to somebody else? So as you're practicing this a little bit more, just ask some people, hey, I just want to run this by you and see what their reaction is. So I would be remiss if I didn't touch on 2 parts of these 5 reframes that I think are so important, which are the bullet points to power pictures. We are spending so much time on Zoom, and when these are actual PowerPoint slides that I've seen, and when you look at these, oh, well, you can't see what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder. I was like, when you see some of the PowerPoint presentations, and they are so full of information, all good stuff.
Whoa.
But it's just, these are all actual presentations that are part of PowerPoint presentations, and we see color in them, but like the car crash, we can't even read that. And especially when you think about that people are spending so much time on Zoom, sometimes the power presentations are really more about us. What you want is that somebody leaves your presentation going, yeah, that was, it had a funky bottle on it, or the slides were, that's memorable. So instead of adding as much as you can, just add as little as you can and make it a little bit more colorful. What you see here is, it's simple. The top 5 best apps. There's not a lot of information. And then you can share, the red is happiness. The next one is LinkedIn. The next one is, just tell people, because the truth is, if they write it down themselves, they are more likely to remember it. So if you're giving it to them as a PowerPoint, and by the way, then when people say, oh, can you send that PowerPoint presentation to me? Truth be told, how many times have you asked for a presentation and you really, because it was really good, and you're like, I'll look at it, and then you just completely forget about it. Yeah, it's so don't spend a lot of time with information. Instead, make the PowerPoints just an add-on. And as you could tell today, we've had plenty of technology glitches, and we could have had this whole presentation without any slides. You should be able to have your presentation with no slides whatsoever. If you are counting on your slides, no good, because you never know. This happened to me. I was at the NIH giving a presentation. I asked, what do I need to bring? Nothing, we have everything. I think I asked 5 times, what do I need to bring? What do I need to, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It was a back and forth, and well, by the time I got there, the person who was in charge was no longer there. Nobody knew where any of the stuff was, and I couldn't show any of my slides. But I don't need my slides. So my encouragement to you, make the slides exciting, make them colorful, make them a little bit loopy. Maybe you'll remember a slide or 2 from tonight, but that's better than having a slide with a lot of information. Now, before, and I'm looking at, I want to be mindful of the time before we, before we kind of wrap this up, because I told you we would have these different reframes to make your presentations a lot more powerful. I just want to check in. What are some things that you're taking away from our conversation today? What are some things that are standing out for you so far?
I think that I like the fact that you talked about the pain points. Because I'm thinking, because I was telling the breakout room that I have this group to Dubai, and one of the main things is going to be safety. So that's going to be a big pain point. So I'm going to address that like right away.
Yeah,
and the pain points.
Yeah, and flesh that out a little bit too. You know, get real specific on that. Yep. Anything else that you're discovering tonight?
I think for me, really, it just all kind of whoosh came together with those 3 points. It was just so cool about bringing the pain points. I think Cindy, for you also, just having those pain points there and just really discussing them, having them in the forefront and all, that's what I also, and then just really being full on there on the solution and all. And then, I find so many people, when they've created these relationships and they've had these great solutions or these great things, they want a continuation. We want to have those relationships going on. And how will that happen? That's so important. How will we continue? On what level? How is there a way that we can continue to do good things?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really enjoyed when you said the presentation happens twice, which I never really thought about. Like having the right energy the moment you say yes, and just having that right energy as you are working on the presentation, and then 10 minutes before you go on to the presentation. So I really loved that. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And I like the showing up as the guide as opposed to the expert. Those were really excellent.
Yeah.
And then not to mention I'm sorry, Nicoletta, not to mention the activities, because it kept me engaged. It kept me going. Like, it just kept me excited the entire time, even through the breakout rooms. So
thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I'm like, the kid doesn't get any better than this. This is what you were hoping for as a presenter. So you are engaging, and that's your takeaway, and that's the invitation. Anybody can do this. Anybody. So there's one more thing that we need to, the two more things that we need to address as we're wrapping this up. You've now got the meat of the presentation. You know how to hook them. You know the basic frame. Don't end without your ask. What is it? Don't leave the space just saying, okay, thank you. Think about, what is it that you really want? Do you want them to take action? Do you want them to make sure that you register to vote? Tell them what to do. I want to keep you inspired. Sign up for my newsletter. I have a program starting. Join me to carry this forward. Don't leave without asking for something and inspiring people, because sometimes our mind actually always looks for closure. That's how our mind works. And when we're in a presentation and there is no closure, then the mind's like, well, what I do. So again, think about, what is it that you came for there? And this does not have to be, if this is not a sales presentation for you, it could be leaving people with a question. The next time you're thinking about hiring somebody for marketing, maybe security, or maybe experience will play a bigger role now. Leave them with a question. That's also a powerful way to end a conversation. But don't end the presentation with thank you. Oops.
That's a great point.
Just asking them for more questions. Do they have any questions?
I mean, even if you're not asking, if you're asking, take action, sign up, join me, even if it's not that, maybe it could be, a follow-up meeting, more information, just have something to take it to the next thing, or a referral or something, just don't leave it there. Yeah.
And Cindy, I think to your point, if you are including in your presentation a Q&A, let's say you've scheduled some time for the Q&A, there will be a point where you're done. You're getting off the stage, you're getting off Zoom. Don't end with a thank you.
Okay.
End with something. End with, there were so many amazing questions. I'd love to talk to you about it more. I've put my email in the chat. Please reach out to me so that we can continue these conversations, period.
Okay.
Or, there were some great insights, and I invite you to think about some of the challenges that we discussed as you're building your business or whatever. But don't leave, even after Q&A, there's that point and you want to leave powerfully. Don't thank them. You provided value to them, right? So don't thank them and just be intentional about how you end it.
Okay.
Now, I do want to share with you that if you found tonight to be helpful, if you got some insights from tonight, my invitation to you is join me. There is power in community. There's power in working together. One of the things that I love about C4 is the collaboration. You can carry this forward. I'm going to put the PDF in the chat box in a second, and there's a link to register there. You can carry this forward. In January, we're starting a group coaching. We're going to limit the size because we want this about not just learning, but about connecting and growing together. When you grow yourself, you grow your business, you grow what's possible. And this is your invitation. If you found this valuable, just think what it's like to be on a 5-week journey to dive a little bit deeper into the reframes into your own business and discover on a weekly basis the power of reframes, doing action items, and having a group that holds you accountable. Not like where you're like, okay, yeah, I'll do that, but a group where you're like, hey, you said you would. So what did you share with me? That puts a different fire. And by the way, when you don't show up, people are going to be like, we missed you. Where are you? Because it's not about the volume. It's about connecting with one another and really supporting one another. So I'm always available for, a consult. If this seems right for you, we're going to start it off on January the 12th at 4:30 are going to be our meetings. The price is $659. It's $575 if you sign up before the 31st of December. Reach out to me if we need to split that up somehow. I totally understand it's December. That's something I can do. But carry the momentum forward. There's such a thing as you start with something and then you stop. You're like, well, I'll do it again. And the momentum is lost. You've looked at how to present yourself, but there are other areas in your business that you can level up the same way. The way you're asking for business, the way you're connecting with your clients, by the way, where you're networking, that some of those things have to do with that little inner voice that says, well, I don't know if I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet. We're going to look at all that together so that you can reach more of those business goals. And I'm a firm believer, you grow yourself, automatically you grow your business. And when people say, are you a life coach or a business coach? And I say, when are you dead at work? When you know how to, when you know, right? I mean, when you break through and can set powerful boundaries without feeling guilty, it's not like you're going to go home and go, well, I only do that at work. No, that's a shift within you. So this is about not just the tools and the strategies, but growing you from the bottom up. That's what this conversation was looking at. So I would love for you to join me, partner with me, be on this journey with me, because I'd love to see you take wherever you are. And next year is a whole new year. Make 2021 better, start it off on the right foot. And we all know that, I think the studies say that 8% of people who set goals actually reach them. The other 92 don't. And that's, to me, always disheartening. Every year when that comes back in, I think, wait, am I reaching all those goals? And this is one way that's going to set you up for the year. So again, if you have any questions or are ready to take that leap, I'd love for you to join me, talk to you about it a little bit more, explain it to you more, and help you get registered for it, because I think you're already starting this journey and all it takes is to continue it. Now, oops. There was
guys,
one
before you popping off, if you want to put your LinkedIn or something where, we can stay in touch or something, your email or whatever in the chat, then we can do that. Otherwise, I think we pretty much know how to reach each other for sure.
Yeah, and I do want to, there's one last thing that I think is really, really, really important for us to, as we're wrapping this off, is to think about the technology, particularly as we're all on Zoom these days, to go from low light to being in the limelight, in the bright light. Think about every time you used to go to a meeting, you used to give somebody a business card. We can't do that anymore. Your Zoom is your business card.
Yeah.
And so really think about, what does your background say specifically about you? Do you want it to say something else? Now, you know, again, when we work together, we look at, what does your background say about you? Now, you may not have a wall that's available for a, you know, for a big purple background, but you can make small spaces work. You can get green screens from Amazon. I had one consultant I worked with. What she did is she had this big white wall with tons of books, and she ended up organizing them according to color, just color. And that was so interesting, because then when you were looking, you're like, I wonder what, there's a green section, a blue, oh my God, well, how many different sections? It wasn't so easy for her because she wasn't sure anymore, you know, what was what. But every time people show up, you know, we talked about brand last week, and your brand is you. Your business card is your Zoom background every single time. So really pay attention. What do you have in your background when you are, when you're out on Zoom? And the other thing is, make sure you have the proper lighting. Well, one last thing I'm going to add to that is, if you are using a virtual background, get a green screen. Because if you're giving a presentation and you turn into the invisible woman or the invisible man, that there's nothing more distracting than just disappearing. So get a green screen. Get a green screen, and then you can get on Amazon like a backdrop, tons of great backdrops that you can get. That's a great way that you can also level up lighting and sound. Tonight, I used a lavalier. You can get those on Amazon, anywhere between $60 and $100. Those are great to improve the sound quality of your audience. If you use this lavalier and you're using any music, make sure that you're using headphones, because your computer is going to get very confused otherwise. And lastly, lighting. There are so many great ways to make sure that your audience can really see who you are, your smiling faces, that you're able to connect with that person. You can use ring lights. If you are wearing glasses, you might want to tilt it a little bit so people can't see the ring light. There are also lighting bars. There's lighting you can do from the floor. There are lots of solutions for you to make sure that people can see who you are, because that's so important, that they can really, that they don't get distracted with what it is that you're sharing with them, because the quality isn't so good. So I shared a lot with you tonight. I've taken you through several reframes, through technology glitches and other things. And I want to tell you that the name of the game is progress, not perfection.
Yes.
It's so easy not to take action because we think we're not there yet. It's so easy to be immobilized because of fear. The name of the game is simply progress, not perfection. Every time you go out and you try it, just take inventory. How does it work? How doesn't it work? What will I do differently next time? And that's all I'm going to say. You're ready for your presentation. If you're giving it at an event that's open to the public, let me know. I'd love to join you. I'd love to see how you're putting this to work. And join me, reach out to me. It would be great to partner with you in January. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Natasha.
That was great. Thank you.
Nicoletta.
Yes.
Honestly, I was just telling people to put that in the chat, but I was gonna say, you know, I mean, just if you just want to keep talking, because it's I mean, you're just covering such amazing, important things, because I've often thought about that, the background. I mean, today we were in a room with Nada, and she has this beautiful painting in the back, and it was very intriguing. And you know, but then sometimes, yeah, you're like wondering what's in the thing. And I'm, you know, I sit here because it's my favorite chair. My friend Karen, who did the painting, and here is the, you know, the evil eye to protect you from the. But it's true. It could be totally distracting and not, you know, it just kind of, I feel like it comes from like where your heart is, but then you're right. That's what people are seeing, and what kind of message and how you keeping people's attention is so important, right?
Yeah, and the message, I know every time we see you, you're always, you know, made up. You've always got beautiful lipstick on. And I think every time we see you, that's part of, I'm going to say, your brand. Every person is their brand. That's all there is
That's
to it.
true.
We talked about, Marcia talked about branding, and you are your brand. And sometimes we forget that we have to create that alignment when we're showing up on Zoom. And it's that way too. If I had a client, she was a professional organizer, and when she would come to networking events, she couldn't find stuff in her purse. You can't go to a networking event and not find things in your purse if you're a personal organizer. That just doesn't work. And sometimes we're not sure exactly what our brand is. What's the story that everything around us is sharing?
It's true.
You guys, any questions for Nicoletta? Anything you want to ask her? I always say during C4, like, it's just so valuable to have a one-on-one with people and just really connect that way too. But please, if there's any questions that we can all benefit from, and I mean, it'll go a little bit over, but well, anything anyone wants to share? Awesome. I just got so much out of that.
That was wonderful.
I think especially where, personally I am right now with what I'm doing, it was an amazing help. And thank you guys so much. What a wonderful group we have. I know. It's so good to see you all. Oh my goodness. And Nicoletta, I cannot thank you enough.
Yes, Nicoletta.
Really
Gosh,
great.
that was excellent.
Man, I've got some awesome speakers on this thing.
It was my pleasure.
Right. Okay, guys, keep in touch. Let's
keep
in touch.
Thank you, everybody.
Night.
Thanks, Nicoletta.
Bye.
Bye.